Oh, hey. Okay, well, it says we're live. There we go. All right. Well, I am Dynasty Outhouse, and I have a trading problem.
And I'm Brian Haar, and I also have a trading problem.
Hey, everybody on YouTube and on Periscope. We are live. It is session 124 of the Trade Addicts podcast, a member of the DLF family of podcasts. Also, a proud and wonderful, happily member of the Dynasty Addicts podcast network, the DAP network, if you will, and we will. It's week one, baby, and it still feels weird. I'm not there yet. It still doesn't feel weird. I just wrapped up my second and last draft tonight, but the only thing I got out of it is I just don't think I care about redraft anymore. It was real hard to get through that draft. It's just like you get to round like 15 and it's just like, I mean, I guess I'll take Paris Campbell. Sure, why not? I mean, like, okay, but like on my dynasty team, I'm thrilled to have Paris Campbell on there, and I it's all in my brain. I know that redraft absolutely has its place, and I know a lot of people love it, but I I think I've outgrown it. I think I'm just kind of done.
Yeah, I mean, so my home league, I mean, the one with the guys that I grew up with, that league is in its 13th. This will be 14th year.
Were you looking over at a trophy to try and?
I actually was, yes. But yeah, it's. I mean, it's. So we were a redraft league. We evolved into a keeper league where we keep 3 players with no round restrictions. It's just a straight 3-player keeper. And they won't really go to a dynasty. Or at least the last time we talked about it, it was kind of like, eh. So that's the one that I play in. Outside, well, that's not true. I have another one with a buddy of mine from college, so I'm in 2 redraft leagues. The rest of them are all dynasty. So, but yeah, it's tough to get as excited about them just because. I mean, they're still fun. They still have a purpose, but it's just not as. I mean, you can get excited about the draft itself, but like once the draft's over, it's like, okay, like whatever. Cause you know that like in redraft leagues, there's not trading the way that there is in dynasty. And unless you draft really, really well, or you're really good at waiver pickups,
which I always forget to do.
Yeah, same. So I mean, it's if you're not on top of the draft and waiver pickups, it's just kind of like meh,
Yeah.
So I mean, by all means, keep playing redraft, guys. I mean, that's
absolutely
it's fun
and
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I'm with you, Russ. I think it's just for me, it's pretty much all dynasty at this point.
Yeah, and I don't know, like maybe if we did a redraft league with like a group of our friends or like internet friends, maybe I would care more. Maybe it is just the people I play with. Like there's absolutely people in both these leagues that I just leave alone at all times. Like even if like I want to trade something, I look at them, no, that guy's on that team. I'm just not going to do it. Not going to bother. Like the draft I had tonight, usually we do a live draft, and this is filled a 12-team league where there's probably about 4 people that show up with magazines like that's how they draft. I mean, it's good for me because I usually cash out. I mean, I've had horrible luck at winning. I came in second place in one last year, missed out on the playoffs by Juju Smith-Schuster being a jerk. Otherwise my team crushed it. So I barely missed the playoffs, but I usually get cash out of one of those leagues, and I guess, but I don't know, that's not why I play. That's not the point, but I guess it makes me feel a little better in the long run, but
yeah.
And then I tried to do a dynasty league with one of my home leagues and I hated it. And that's the home league that I ended up leaving and, hoping that my friends canceled, even though they just turned it into an 8-team league and kept going. So, I mean, good on them for wanting to keep going, but nah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm never going to leave. That's the thing. Like, I'm just going to have to cross my fingers that these leagues fold because I really like the people that run them. But, a couple of people that are in the leagues are just pretty. But that's not what we're here to talk about. What are we here to talk about? I don't even know anymore.
Football!
I know I needed to start. I need it to be Thursday or like Wednesday where I'm like, because my real goal is to set my lineups on Thursday morning. I tweeted out and I'm like, I can't wait for it to be next Thursday where I could ignore my work and set all my lineups. And I know I'm going to do it on Wednesday because I'm going to get too excited. But it's still Monday. Tomorrow's Tuesday, and I'm probably still not going to feel it. But I like someone not DM me, someone like added me asking me like a sit and start question, like who should you start? And I'm like, why are you asking me this now? Oh crap. Oh yeah,
games this week.
Yeah, there's games, right? But yeah, I'm hoping. I know I'll feel it once it starts, and oh man, when there's football on TV. And I just got so freaking lucky. We had Optimum Online for cable, and it was just too damn expensive, so we canceled it, and we got YouTube TV. Magically, this week, YouTube TV gets rights to NFL Network and NFL Red Zone.
Nice.
Like, the football gods just smiled on me on that one. So I am just so happy, so ready. Like, yes, I need it to be 2 days from now. Well, after we're done recording, because this is fun. I like talking to you. Then we could just skip 2 days. No, that's a lie. Tomorrow's my daughter's first day of kindergarten. So I should probably be there for, like, if this was like that Click, was that the Adam Sandler movie? Like, maybe, I don't know. Okay. But regardless. Okay. Let's go to the news.
The news.
Well, this isn't actually football news. I just wanted to, put out into the world. At the end of every show, we talk about FF Pod shirts, the merch shop we have with all of the awesome podcasts, all the DAP people, Dynasty Diagnostic and everything, and how all the proceeds go to a charity. And also our wristbands, also money goes to charity. And for the past 2 months, we have been collecting for the Colorectal Cancer Alliance. And today I made a donation of $31. So thank you everyone who has helped us be able to raise money to be able to donate. So let's keep going. Brian gets to pick the next charity. I don't know if he's thought of it or not, but hopefully he thinks of one by the end of the show so we could actually announce it when we're talking about the pod shirts again.
Yeah, I'll have one by the end of the show. I have one. I just have to look up and make sure I know exactly what it's called. I know the cause. I just don't know exactly what the charity's called. So
yeah. Nice. Okay, so now let's get to real news, and I'm gonna start with the confusing one. So the Raiders traded Lynn Bowden Jr. To Miami. So they traded Bowden in a 7th for a 4th, and they just drafted Bowden in the 3rd.
Yep.
What?
I have no idea.
Now, you draft Lynn Bowden Jr. because he's versatile, because I know he probably didn't choose to play every single position, but he sort of got forced into it. And he did it well enough that he is your Swiss Army knife or your offensive weapon, and other things I could do with air quotes and talk like Chris Farley from Saturday Night Live when he lived in a van down by the river. But like, I read something about like he had a crazy past, like a crazy childhood or something like that, where he grew up in a place called Murder Town or something like that. I don't know if that's real. That's just one article I read, so I completely apologize if that's absolutely wrong. But still, I feel like none of that is new to the people that drafted him. So I don't know what Mayock was really thinking. But I mean, I guess, again, it's good to see that we're in an NFL now where players can be traded. I think it kind of sucks for Lynn Bowden, though I'm sure living in Miami is nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's so I don't know that I necessarily agree with the last part, and I'll get into that in a minute. So
living in Miami is nice.
Well, no, that's bad. That the trade was bad for him. I mean, it's bad for him in the sense that the reports out of camp were that he didn't have a good camp at all. Why or what that means exactly, who the hell knows? I mean, somebody that follows the Raiders, I don't. So I don't. Yeah. I mean, other than headlines. So
pretty sure Sal Lito's not listening right now, and he's the only real Raider fan I know.
So, but I mean, the move to Miami. The one thing I like out of Miami that I'm hearing is that they're going to use him at wide receiver, and I think that is more. Well, yeah. I mean, especially. I mean, think about. So they have Devontae Parker, they have Preston Williams, and then who do they have?
Mike Gesicki.
And not even Mike Gesicki. He's not even a starting tight end, apparently.
Oh, come on.
I just saw that today.
Oh, they all released their depth charts. Who do they have
Yeah.
otherwise?
Oh shit! It starts with a D. Last name with an S. Starts with an S, and I can't think of the name.
So I'm just going to think you're making it up. Okay, so
Yeah.
you look that up, and I'm going to say the reason I liked him in Las Vegas was Jalen Richard is ridiculously a jag. Oh, Durham Smythe?
Durham Smythe. Yeah.
Zach
yeah.
in the chat, let us know.
Yep.
Like he putting, they don't want to throw the ball to Josh Jacobs. I don't get it. I don't know why, but it seems to be the way it is. Putting Glenn Bowden Jr. in the backfield, so many options of what to do with it. Plus, he's more electric in space than Jalen Richard is. So I thought it'd be pretty quick that he would jump past him for the RB2 spot. And yes, he's not really a running back. I get that, but that's how they wanted to use him. That's how they drafted him. I would assume they would have thought about it before drafting him. I guess not, but it seemed to make sense a little bit. And then, yeah, you could split him out wide and throw him in the slot, all that kind of stuff. And it seemed like a smart move. And then they just traded him to Miami, which, yeah, they could do the same thing there because, Jordan Howard and Matt Breida aren't anything super special when it really comes down to it. So, maybe that comes into play as well. But
what does Jordan Howard have to do to get some respect on his name?
He's good. He's just not something special. He's good.
But
Marlon Mack is good. So what?
Well, yeah, the difference is
more than good Marlon, at running back in the NFL these days.
Yeah,
and Jordan Howard is
especially to be viable long term.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jordan Howard, you're right. By all means, has had a pretty good career, like stat wise, and he's done it on different teams and showed that he can be, well, versatile is the wrong word because play wise, not versatile, but he can live up to the adversity of moving around like Brandon Cook style. And that will probably keep his career going longer than it probably would have had he stayed in Chicago for longer. Right. So I agree. He's good. He should get more respect than he does, but I'm not going to say he's anything special.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I guess. I just want him to succeed so bad. I have a lot of shares. And I have him in Fishbowl, and I need him to do well there, please.
Oh, I don't want to talk about Fishbowl. That team is just quickly dying. Marcus Mariota on the IR, I have Derek Carr, so I drafted Mariota, and that just... And then, Fournette landed in Tampa. I don't think we've talked about that yet, because I think we got the cut news for our show, but he got signed 2 days later. Mm-hmm. So Leonard Fournette is in Tampa Bay.
Yep.
How do you feel? I don't know how to feel about that. Like, he's probably the best. He's the best running back. Like, he's the best runner on that team. Is he the best receiver also after seeing what he did last year?
Probably.
Like, I'm not talking about like running wheel routes because I don't think any on that team really should. And they cut Dare Ogunbowale, which was the one guy that could. So, and oh man, like I've been saying that guy's name so much this preseason because I never bought into the receiving chops of Rojo or Keyshawn Vaughn. And then and Arians is just like, this outhouse kid, no, screw you, guy. And I know he was thinking that exact thing when he did it.
Arians loves messing with us. He really does. Yeah, no, Fournette is by far the most talented running back. He's also, we'll see if he can be a different teammate and a different player, organizational, like positive, as opposed to what it seemed like he became in Jacksonville. Who knows? That's all perspective too.
His relationship in Jacksonville went south fast.
It did, but what I'm saying is we don't know why. We don't know exactly why. So it could be, could it be that Tom Coughlin's a jackass? To work for?
No, we know he is. We absolutely know he is.
So could it be that Fournette was a little lazy at times, or was or whatever? I don't know. We really don't know.
Yeah.
So talent-wise, Fournette by far is the most talented running back on that roster. And it's not even close. Rojo, with all due respect, it's just not.
He'll be a great change of pace back.
I don't disagree. I think he can have a role. I just don't think it's going to be a super large one.
No, I think his fantasy value has been pretty crushed. But
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think either of us were really there for his fantasy value in the first place anyway. But to go along with, being a better teammate, I know this is his first year there, but I feel like it doesn't matter. You run everything by Tom Brady before it happens.
exactly.
And they had
As
their
long as
picture taken together already I think it was at Brady's house. So it must have been, I'm going to say it was Brady approved before it happened.
Yeah.
So I, yeah, okay. So no, let's bring this back to last week, and let's do this live also. You said you would take a second for Leonard Fournette.
Yep.
For Trade Addict 7 in our
Take it.
inbox, we have two trades.
Take it.
We have a 21 second or
we
a
have-
22 first.
I think
So I'll give context for everyone listening. We had what should have been a very decent competing team. The problem is we had Dalvin Cook and Leonard Fournette. Dalvin Cook, I'm a little terrified about right now because him holding out and the injuries he already has in the first place. First of all, his trade value is just dead. Like he's one of the few people these days where it's like, oh no, I'm just not buying that player right now. Even if you do ask for a little bit less than you probably should get for him. We have a decent team otherwise. Our depth is pretty. So when we got these offers in, I posed the idea to Brian, like, should we just embrace this? Oh man, I'm completely blank because I keep going to say the word redraft. Rebuild? Not reboot, rebuild. That's the word. Wow. It is 9:47 and I couldn't think of the word rebuild. And the biggest problem is in this league, Tyler Gunther and Doug Eddy co-own a team and they have 421 firsts already. So getting in on that 21 draft will be a little tougher. So in my mind, let's get younger, get that 22 first, go get some Sam Howell and some David Bell and some other guys that I can't think of that are, when Journey Brown doesn't come out this year, he comes out the year after, we can get him. That's like, let's just go all in on 22, right?
Yeah. So are we accepting it?
Which do you want? Do you want the 21 second or the 22 first?
I think we could go with the first.
Do it with the first?
Yeah.
All right, here, I'm clicking the buttons right now. So I mean, Trade Addicts trades, right? I mean,
yeah, Trade Addicts trade.
Bam, accepted. So 2022
breaking news
for Leonard Fournette. That's what we just did right now. So that's good. So sorry, JP, we did not take your second. We took a first, even though it's a little further down the line.
The likelihood of us hanging on to that. I mean,
yeah, I know. Like we're probably gonna get.
We'll probably trade it away anyways. But
yeah, well, yeah. I mean that's fair. Okay, what else do we have up here? Okay, so we've talked about Fournette. Now let's talk about the team he's leaving. Left, I should say, the Jaguars. I have so many Raquel Armstead shares, and they are apparently worthless because he is now on the COVID NFI IR list or whatever you want to call it these days. And it is apparently James Robinson's season because it'll be Chris Thompson's season for about 26 minutes. Oh, I'm getting a Dikembe Mutombo finger wag. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's Chris Thompson's season.
For until he gets hurt.
Sure, until he gets hurt.
Which I do think we have him on TA7. But it's, man, we did get a listener question. So let's just, here we go. Jason, there's a tilde. FF at Slickwick13. What do you think about James Robinson taking over the Jacksonville? There's no one else, man. At this point, again, Chris Thompson should have always been a thing, but the dude's legs just can't stay healthy is really what it comes down to, and he misses time every single season. We can't predict, we can't guarantee injuries, but we can say with a strong likelihood that it seems like it's going to happen. And a lot of people in the chat right now are saying Devonta Freeman season.
He left town without a deal.
Yeah, I don't know if he's asking for too much money. I don't know what he's like. The dude he got his big deal already, Devontae. So he's probably like, let me find the right situation. I'm not going to take that punishment unless I'm getting what I want. In which case, good for him, man. Like, the punishment their bodies and brains take, they should. get every penny they can. And if it's not worth it, he was in the league what, 6 years ish, something like that. He lived his dream. He got his paycheck. Why do it for less?
Yeah.
I mean, I want to, and assuming he wasn't great last year, assuming he can play back to closer to the level we're used to from him, I would love to see him on the field again.
But, yeah, same. The biggest thing with Freeman, I mean, so it's just injuries and concussions, because he's had quite a few head injuries in the league. So, but yeah, I mean, I would love to see him, get another chance somewhere, and he will. I think, like you said, I think it's just a matter of he's probably had, I mean, would you go to Jacksonville if they didn't pay you the upper end of what your asking price was? I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, it's not like you're going there to win. You go there to get beat up and collect a paycheck. I mean, I don't know. I just.
Okay, so the only person we haven't listed yet is Divine Ozigbo.
Yeah, I don't know.
He was the guy that was drafted by the Saints, right? I think so, and just hasn't done anything ever in the NFL. I think it was only last year he was drafted, so I think that's a little unfair to say. But I mean, maybe he'll get some run just because, again, there's not much else there. Unless they bring in someone else. All right, that's enough about Jacksonville, because I got to be honest, I don't think it matters really. Like you're going to want the guys who to catch passes. For now, that's Chris Thompson. Their defense is awful. They're going to be behind a lot, and yeah, I mean, Gardner Minshew has shown that he's cool throwing to the running back. So right now, Chris Thompson's probably going for cheaper than he should be, especially if you want to start that season strong. If you have like J.K. Dobbins, who may not go out right away and crush it, because I think he's like 4th on the depth chart right now, which is a whole lot of hooey. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I think Thompson is a great guy that you can hope to get like 2-3 strong games out of before, that low ankle sprain happens.
Agreed.
All right. Well, there's only one thing left in our news section, so why don't you talk about it?
Yeah, so this is going to be fun for me, because I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to transition right into another thing that I want to do. We're going to talk about the Steelers for a few minutes here. And
well, in case people aren't listening live, why don't you just describe your fashion choices for tonight?
Yeah, so I got my my Steelers draft hat on, which is one of the sexiest ones that they've had in a number of years. I've got my brand new Color Rush Minkah Fitzpatrick black 39 jersey with the gold letters and numbers on. Yeah, and my terrible towel sitting over here, but it's a little out of reach. So, but yeah, no, and I knew I was going to talk about him a little bit, so I figured I'd dress the part. So, for those who don't know, which you should by now, but if you don't, I'm a Steelers fan, lifelong. So I'm going to talk about the Steelers for a little bit. It's fantasy relevant too. So, well, at least the first part is. Second part will make fantasy relevant. How's that? So the news out of Pittsburgh yesterday, late last night actually, was that Cam Hayward just signed an extension. And unless you play IDP, you're probably like, what the hell do I care? Like, I don't care about this. It's a defensive player, right? So if you play IDP, if you play IDP, awesome. And
good for you.
Don't ask me anything about. I don't know shit about IDP, so you're probably not going to get your IDP fix here. Cam is a hell of a defensive player, but here's why this matters for the Steelers and for fantasy purposes. So they just signed him for 4 more years. It's a 4-year extension. Worth, I mean, the total, including this year's salaries, 5 years, $74 million, basically. They paid Cam a shit ton of money. It's the bottom line. They have TJ. So Bud Dupree is playing on the franchise tag. They have TJ Watt coming up. I think he's an unrestricted free agent year after. I think they have him like 1 more year after this, and then he's an unrestricted free agent. They've got Minkah in a few. I mean, I think Minkah still has 3 years on his contract, but they've got some big defensive hitters that are coming up. Devin Bush is going to be coming up. And But here's why it matters for fantasy. James Conner, unrestricted free agent after the season. Juju Smith-Schuster, unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. And those are two massive players, and especially Juju, right? I mean, we're talking about a 23-year-old stud wide receiver. Depending on how you feel about him from last year, that's fine, whatever. The bottom line is he's a player that's drafted in the top 3 rounds of every fantasy draft that you're playing in, regardless of format. So the Steelers are not going to re-sign Juju Smith-Schuster. It can't happen. I mean, I got into this last night and started messing with numbers. And so the cap, right, is the cap floor next year is $175 million. With this whole COVID thing, the cap is unlikely to increase at all, or very, very, very slightly. It very well could go down. I think it has as much of a chance of going down as it does of going up at all.
So one thing I read was that they are going to try to spread out the devastation of the salary cap over the next 10 years. So yeah, I think you're right. Next year, at best, it will stay the same, but it may go down a little bit.
Yeah. So, but what does this mean, right? So it means that if these guys, Juju, James Conner, if they're not interested in taking team friendly, and we're not talking like a little bit team friendly, we're talking like massive discounts, which neither of them should. If they, I mean, especially, I would say especially Juju, and if Conner can stay healthy all year, he shouldn't either, because if he stays healthy, he's gonna ball out, and if Men stays healthy. So why it matters again? So a couple reasons. Deontay Johnson, this is your last chance. Okay, this is your last chance to get in on Deontay Johnson. Benny Snell. Some of these other guys that aren't going to be huge difference makers this year. Get in on them. Get these guys as throw. I mean, Deontay Johnson, you're not going to get as a throw in a deal, but if you can get Benny Snell thrown in a deal as the extra piece. When you're close on a trade deal, if you can get Snell, or you can get even James Washington, or any
Washington of these hate's gone way too far.
Yeah, I agree. But if this is going to matter with Juju and with James Conner. They are likely not going to be Steelers moving forward, which sucks because I love Juju Smith-Schuster, absolutely love him. But yeah, I wanted to bring that up because it definitely hit me last night when they signed Cam. I'm very happy that they signed Cam Hayward, but it's going to impact the offensive side of the ball in Pittsburgh in the long run. So we'll have to see how exactly based on what the exact cap numbers are, but it's going to cost them some players on the offensive side. So that's our last bit of news. And then, well, actually, let's just hit on. So John McGlynn just put in the chat about Josh Rosen to Tampa. Let's just hit on that real quick too. So
I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, right. I mean, everybody thought he was going to go to New England and be with Brady up there 2 years ago, and now he's with him in Tampa. So we'll see how that works out for them. I don't think it's going to matter, to be honest with you. But who knows? It could. It could.
We thought he was good. Like a lot of people thought he was good. The biggest problem, you had him higher than I did. One of the biggest thing against him was panics under pressure. And what has the most unfortunate thing happened to this kid? He's been on like 3 teams that have had the worst offensive lines ever. So yeah, it's been playing straight into his weakness. Now, Tampa doesn't have a great offensive line, but does Bruce Arians care as much? I think the dude did well with Jay Cutler. I mean, like he's willing to deal with quarterbacks that may not be perfect. So I think he will give him a chance. And we always thought he was a good fill-in in case Brady went down, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I just think it's so freaking funny that we all joked that he was going to end up going to New England to sit behind Brady for 2 years, and now he's behind Brady.
Now he's in Tampa, yeah, sitting behind Brady for 2 years. Yeah, much.
Okay, so Travis brings up a great question. Has a 24-year-old prime wide receiver ever hit free agency before? I can't, I'm not thinking of anything off the top of my head. The closest we have is Amari Cooper changing teams, right? And that wasn't free agency. He was traded, but like that's the closest thing I could think of is someone that young that we consider that good changing teams. I mean, Allen Robinson, but I mean that was off an ACL tear year and the Jaguars being the Jaguars. So I like that will legitimately be crazy, and I will say literally that will literally be crazy because the NFL salary cap seems to mean literally nothing to most teams, and I get that it's going to be so used to the cap going up 15 20 something $1 million, and even if it stays the same, you're still sort of screwed because you're used to going up every year. That it's just still so strange to let someone as seemingly loved as Juju walk and not do something to keep him there.
Yeah. Well, and the whole thing with that too is like this is the time where they normally would be extending him. You know, the Steelers, the way they operate in their front office, they try to get that extension done prior to the season, the final season of the deal, the original deal, or the whatever deal is expiring. So, and then they don't negotiate during the season typically. So, unless they're changing something, this is going the whole way. You know, I mean, they'll have, I guess, till March 15th or whatever next year to get an extension done with him. But I'm not real confident that it's going to get done. So,
I mean, you're not the first person to say that. Rob, I remember his last name, Rob Sprout. What is it? Backdoor Steelers show he does.
Back row.
Not backdoor, my bad. That's what I think of the Steelers. I meant to say that, yeah. He also brought up the fact that he doesn't think that Juju's going to get re-signed, and it's blowing my mind. It's on one hand I get it. On the other, I don't. I trust. If there's one thing I trust for the Steelers, it's that they can draft wide receivers. Now, not everyone is Juju, but I have everyone loved James Washington. Not everyone. I hate talking in absolutes, yet I still say it out loud. So many people love James Washington. Everyone now loves Deontay Johnson. Mapletron? Is that
Mapletron?
Yeah, like he caught a touchdown in practice, so he's the next best thing. I trust the wide receivers they draft because they have a great history of drafting wide receivers. But man, Juju.
Right.
It's just so weird. But I want to go back. Real question. Do you think they go with Benny Snell instead of just drafting somebody?
Well, they drafted Anthony. So they drafted Anthony McFarland Jr. as well in the 4th round this year. We'll see if he gets a look. I don't know.
It's not their usual draft.
No, but they usually also don't spend a lot of high capital on running backs. I mean, Le'Veon Bell was the highest running back I can remember being drafted. I guess Rashard Mendenhall. I guess they did spend a 1st-round pick on him.
I forgot that he was drafted so early.
Yeah, but they don't typically spend, I mean, they get those running backs in 3rd, 4th, 5th round, and then use them until the wheels fall off. I know that sounds awful, but I mean, they do. I mean, think about Willie Parker. I mean, they just don't. Well, the bust they traded for. I mean, they traded for Bettis, and he obviously was a 1st-round pick for the Rams. He was a top 10 pick. I think he was drafted 6th overall out of Notre Dame, but they traded for him.
I wasn't really paying attention to the real NFL world back then, so I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he was drafted early to the Rams, but the Steelers traded for him.
Worked.
Yeah, that worked. That worked out well. Yeah, absolutely. So let me. I'm gonna do it because what the hell? There was a lot of Steelers. I felt like there was some Steelers slander today, or some Ben Roethlisberger slander to be specific. And our boy Joe, Trader Joe, he loves to get me going. I think it's he absolutely loves to get me fired up, and he knows exactly which to push to make it work. so I decided to do a little exercise today in looking at Ben Roethlisberger. And Zach Wilkins also was a part of the conversation, saying that he thinks Ben is old and bad now as a quarterback. And I don't think Ben is old, and I don't think he is old. He is old. So half of it's true. I can
attest. Yeah. He is my age. He is old.
He is old. But I still think he's good. I mean, the last time he played a full season, which doesn't happen terribly often, but
14 games is the full season for him.
Yeah. So 2 years ago, over 5,100 yards and 34 touchdowns.
Very good year.
Best year he's ever had in his career, by far, like by a lot. And even the years before that, I mean, upper 20s in touchdowns, 4,200 yards, 3,800, but he only played 14 games that year. So Ben's been good. He's been good. If he stays healthy, and obviously that's the big question mark. It's an elbow injury to his throwing arm, right?
That's a big deal.
There's absolutely a question mark about it. Okay. But if he's healthy, and the Steelers have operated this whole year, this whole non-point scoring season, as if he's healthy. I mean,
I do not think they want to go back to Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges.
I don't either. And I think they would have done something differently. I mean, there were free agents to be had. They didn't have a lot of money for them, but the quarterbacks didn't sign for a lot of money. I mean, Jameis Winston signed for what, $4 million. So, like,
was it even that much? Yeah.
It might not have been. It might not have been. So, but the point is, I mean, there were quarterbacks to be had. If they felt Roethlisberger wasn't going to be able to make it back from this injury, I think they would have gone out and gotten one of these guys, because this defense is legit. This defense is Super Bowl caliber. I mean, it's legit. So if they have competent quarterback play and they can score some points, they're going to be in every game, just like they were last year, by the way. 8-8 with Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges as your starting quarterback. 2 games ahead of the Browns in the division last year. It was all the Browns. Last year was the Browns' year last year. That's what everybody that I know that is Cleveland people told me, that last year was the Browns. I've been hearing that for like over 2 decades. It's insane.
Hey, this year is the Browns' year.
In fact, I have some statistics I'd like to read regarding Ben Roethlisberger and the Cleveland Browns. Ben Roethlisberger has played the Cleveland Browns 26 times in his illustrious Hall of Fame career. 23-2-1 in those games. That's a 90% winning percentage. 12-0 at home. He's never lost to the Browns at Heinz Field. 11-2 on the road. He's the winningest quarterback in First Energy Stadium history. That's not his stadium. That's the Browns stadium. He's the winningest quarterback in the Browns stadium. Let that sink in for just a second. He's the winningest quarterback in the Browns stadium. Okay? 40 touchdown passes in those 26 games. He was drafted 11th overall that year in 2004. The Browns drafted 6th overall. They took Kellen freaking Winslow, the soldier. They've had 26 different starting quarterbacks since Ben became the starting quarterback for Pittsburgh. Zero playoff appearances.
You went all in on this.
Zero playoff appearances. 0 playoff wins, obviously, because there were no appearances. So, like, forgive me as a Steelers fan for laughing every single year when this conversation happens. Because it happens. It doesn't happen every year. But the last couple, right? So Baker comes in. It's going to be different with Baker. Baker comes in. It's a little different. I mean, they won 5 games or 4 games or whatever it was that first year. Good for him. And then last year, they won 6 games. So it is different. You're right. You're not winning 0 games or 2 games. You're winning 6 games. Win 8 and come talk to me. Okay? And then when you come talk to me, we'll talk about these. Okay.
Say it out loud.
Get you one of these Super Bowl XL champions, Pittsburgh Steelers. Super Bowl XL I champions. I'm not good with Roman numerals. Pittsburgh Steelers. So, like, goodness, boys. I hope the Browns are a little better. The Steelers are not finishing 4th in the division this year. I'll shave my head if they do. I have no hair, so it works. It's easy, but yeah, it's just not happening. So that was my tangent for today. Thank you for obliging me, Twitter and Periscope and YouTube and all of you watching and listening. I appreciate your time.
All right, you ready for some Trade Addicts trades?
Trade Addicts trades.
Trade Addicts leagues, 12 teams, Superflex, PPR, tight end premium with 1.75 points per reception. I can never remember that phrase straight. 1.75 points per reception for tight ends and 0.05 points for return yardage. And there's no TA1 trades. So there you go. We have 2 from Trade Addicts 2, and both of them with our boy Mello. First, one of your boys, Chase Claypool, Jamison Crowder, and a 22 second for Irv Smith and a 22 first. Now, I have to say one thing. Thank you, Mello. Thank you, because this dude is tanking for his rebuild, except I have his 21 first. So, yes, send Chase Claypool, send Jamison Crowder. You do that, man. I tried to buy Irv Smith from him immediately, and it didn't work, but because I do love me some Irv Smith, but yeah, keep going, man. Keep tanking. Let me get that Lawrence or Fields pick. Let me get it. But let's Chase Claypool, Jamison Crowder, 22 second, Irv Smith, 21 first. Thoughts?
I like the Irv side. So here's the thing about Claypool. If Claypool ends up if he ends up producing, being a pretty decent wide receiver, if he's really Mapletron, I mean, he's not going to be Megatron, so get it out of your head right now. But he's probably one of the most athletic wide receivers the Steelers have ever drafted. Wide receiver, right? There were talks about him potentially playing tight end. That's not going to happen with Eric Ebron in town, but Claypool, if Claypool hits and he becomes a thing, then this trade is much more even. I think right now where these guys stand, I think I would probably lean the Irv side because I think there's a breakout coming for Irv Smith. And then a 22 first. It's a little ways away, but still, I mean, those first round picks, we know how valuable they are. As picks if you keep them, or as trade chips if you don't. So, I think I would lean that side, but I could see this trade working out for both sides if Claypool does hit.
See, here's my thing. If someone told me that they traded Irv Smith for Chase Claypool and Jamison Crowder, I don't think I would really blink about it. Like, I think that sounds okay. And then you got that couple of picks between the first and the second on the Irv side. So that does make me lean Irv. But like you said, like, man, Jamison Crowder is going to get points. Like, I would not be shocked if we get like another 19 catch game, because I mean, I love Denzel Mims, but we hope he's a thing. Rashad Perriman, the only time he's good is when there's no one else to catch the ball. Chris Herndon, who knows if he'll ever be a thing. Hey, we want to get Lev Bell more involved in the passing game. Novel thought, buddy. But so, I mean, we easily, and again with that, I've said it about many teams today, but yeah, there's a lot of bad defenses in this league, and the Jets are one of them. Thanks for Jamal Adams. But Seahawks ruined their first round picks anyway, so it doesn't matter. So, like, I really think there's a good chance that Crowder can really help people win PPR leagues. That's super strong, because still he'll get 19 catches for like 46 yards. But he'll be a very solid contributor to your fantasy team. Chase Claypool, yeah, maybe it takes a year. Maybe if Juju leaves, maybe that's when Chase Claypool becomes the thing. So, and that's like kind of awesome, because like you sent your first, you send a young tight end who we all think is going to break out, but you also got youth back. So I kind of really like this trade in general, because there's a lot of facets to it, and I think the value isn't super far off. So people clearly went out, got their guys that they wanted to get, and that's what we're about, right?
Exactly.
All right, so let's move on to Melo's second trade, where he sent Darrell Williams for a 21 and 22 third. I'm not really sure why I put this on the sheet.
Yeah, meh. I mean, I think for a. I'm trying to think if I would pay 2/3 for Darrell Williams.
I would not, but good for you for getting it.
Yeah, I might. I mean, if I needed running back depth, if I needed running back depth, but see, I would try, like, if I was going to pay 2/3, I'd try to get Nyheim Hines or like Duke Johnson or somebody like that for 2/3 before I would go with. I don't know that would get it done. I mean, that, you know, it might take a second,
like,
but
yeah. All right, that is what it is.
Yeah, it's meh.
All right, let's go down to Trade Addicts 3, and let's talk about Deebo Samuel for your boy that you just said, Nyheim Hines, Michael Pittman, and a 21 second. Now, I want to talk about this because I've been trying to sell Deebo on a team or two and cannot get anything. I would be thrilled to get this side. Now, I don't know if that's what Deebo should be worth, but the tough time I've had selling Deebo, I'd be thrilled to get Pittman in a second and that little dart throw of Hines, because Rivers loves checking down, and I think he's still going to do it. And while we want Jonathan Taylor to be on the field for every single play ever, it's just not going to happen. Unless, I mean, I say that, but Christian McCaffrey, I think, did that last year. So he had like a 99% snap share.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, for me, I think, you know, this trade is fine. I don't think there's a big winner or a big loser or anything like that in this one, but I would prefer the Pittman Nyheim Hines side, because, so, I mean, Deebo and Pittman are drafted. I mean, if we're talking about their value in initial rookie drafts, right? I mean, they're both like early second round picks. Pittman even went late first in a couple. I mean, not many, but and same with Deebo. I mean, he was like an early second round pick in last year's draft. So, you know, I think they're both, and I'm talking in rookie drafts. I'm not talking NFL draft. I'm talking rookie drafts.
Yeah,
but. You know, and then you throw in another second and Nyheim Hines on top of Pittman. And look, I know Deebo, like, are we convinced Deebo is going to be the guy there and it's not going to be Ayuk? And does it really matter when George Kittle's there? I mean, he's the one in the as far as the
I really think that there's a good chance, had Deebo not hurt his foot, his value would be a lot higher, even if Ayuk came into town. Like, they used him in a lot of different ways in the in the playoffs, really, and towards the end of last season. And like, no one saw, I mean, we knew he was capable of it, but no one saw it coming, of him doing it that well and the coaching staff trusting him that much. So I don't know. I guess I don't know if I never understood the hate he got. I was always a little worried just because they did what they did to Pettis. I mean, Pettis finished the season real strong that year, and then they drafted Deebo, and Pettis went away. I don't think Deebo's going away. Foot injury breaking a foot scares the hell out of me, because that always takes a while for it to be right again. And for someone who they're going to want to hand the ball off out of the backfield, you need those foot to do what you tell them to do. So, but if you believe in Deebo, I don't think there's anything wrong with paying Hines as a guy that might not even really be worth much of anything. Pittman, I think, will be great when they get a new quarterback, and the second is a second. That's nice. Like, they kind of probably just threw in Hines at the end. Like, this original probably started out with Pittman in a second for Deebo, and the Deebo owner was like, just throw in Hines and we'll get it done. And they're just like, okay, that's fine. I want Deebo.
Yeah, I guess for me, it's just I think Pittman can probably become what Deebo is. So why wouldn't I take the other two pieces?
Because one is already.
I get it. You're paying for proven production versus potential.
Mm-hmm.
So
we have one trade left. It is Trade Addicts 8, and it is another baby trade where This was me. I sent a 22 second for Alshon Jeffrey and a 21 third. Now the funny is the absolutely wrong word, but last week I did a lunch break with Outhouse for the Tap Network with Scott Sidlow, and the whole point that we did with that show was he was listing players at different positions, and would I send a 21 this, 21 that for these specific players? And he asked if I would send a 21 third for Alshon Jeffrey, and I immediately went, "Yep." I loved Alshon Jeffrey the second he stepped foot on an NFL field. Him and Brandon Marshall together were just gross in a great way. And that's never left my head. And when he and Carson Wentz are healthy, he puts up fantasy points. So sending a 22 second, which more or less is a 21 third, and I got a 21 third back, seems like a no brainer for me.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all. I mean, it's not a deal that's like, ooh, woohoo. But like you said, I mean, it gives you wide receiver depth, and you only, I mean, you don't know where these picks are going to be either. If that's a late second and you get an early third, would you pay that for Alshon? I mean, I think most people would.
Yeah, and I know 22 is a year away, but when you make a trade for someone like Alshon Jeffrey, you're assuming your pick's going to be the end. Like that's why you get a player like that. Right. So I'm hoping I'm building this dynasty. Oh yeah, TA8. I have your boy. I have Baquan. So I'm going to be winning for years to come.
Why don't you trade him to me?
I've tried. You said no.
Well, I do have to have 10 players in order to
that sounds like
put in a valid roster. It is a me problem.
Come at me, boy. Come at me. All right. Well, that's the last trade we have. So let's set up some listener questions.
Listener questions.
All right. So we're going to start with this big one that we did not get to last show, and it is a good one. Ryan Judd hit me up on GroupMe. Yes, that's the name of the thing. How does your trade strategy change during the point scoring season, contender or rebuild? Mm-hmm. And
great question. Right?
Here's my thing. I think the only thing that really changes is when you're in the non-point scoring season, every ounce of value is perceived value. There's nothing real. There's nothing tangible. During the point scoring season, points are being scored. That's tangible. That's real. So it shifts values a lot. If you have a rebuilding team with Emmanuel Sanders and Larry Fitzgerald and Mark Ingram and all of these guys, and I'm speaking from absolute experience from Trade Addicts 4 that I'm trying to push towards a rebuild, but no one wants to take my guys from me. I tried to give you Kelsey and you won't even take him. I haven't been able to move them the entire offseason. One low ankle sprain and a good game out of Emmanuel Sanders, I'll be able to move him for something, as opposed to nothing I can get for him now. Chances are you're going to want to take that guy, add him to some like Sanders in a second to try and get a first, that kind of thing. But I think the only thing that really changes is the value of players and why they have value, as opposed to why the hell did DK Metcalf's value skyrocket so much the past few months? No real reason. Nothing. He didn't do anything new. Nothing changed. But he went from like a 5th round pick to a 3rd, and like quickly. There's no reason why. But I mean, I believe it should be like that. That's besides the point. So the points are going to be getting scored, so that's going to change things. And like I have this team in Trade Addicts 4, like I was talking about. If I win the first 2 weeks and it seems real, it's not because I got lucky. I now know a different direction to take my team. Every week you go into the point scoring season is another chance for you to reevaluate what you're going to do. So, I mean, I think that really helps put you in a mindset where you can judge your team a little better, and it just helps you figure out what trades you should be making. So it's a completely different mindset. I don't think necessarily it's a different strategy, but it's a different puzzle, kind of, where you're going to put the two, non-point scoring season and point scoring season, you're putting the puzzles together the same way. They're just two different puzzles.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's exactly right. And I think, this is why. So, one of the players we talk about when we talk about older players that, and value and how to evaluate players is Julio Jones, right? And we've had how many conversations on our show about Julio and his value and all of that. And like that's why, you know, for somebody who has Julio roster, right? So like people get real frustrated. It's like, well, I'm not paying for Julio, like I'm not paying that for Julio Jones in June because, you know, that's too much for a 29-year-old receiver, a 30-year-old receiver, or whatever it is. Well, guess what? I mean, in week 5, when he has 4 100-yard games and well, he's not going to score that many touchdowns. That's kind of proven. But when he, you know, when he has in 5 weeks, he's got 58 catches and, you know, 600 yards or something like that. You sure as hell aren't going to get Julio for what you offered. You know what I mean? And that's where that, you know, almost guaranteed production, assuming health, is so valuable with some of these veteran players. And during the season is where that comes to fruition. I mean, I think everybody in the non-point scoring season values youth so much more than proven production.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, everybody does in Dynasty, and that's okay. I mean, it makes sense. But when push comes to shove in the season, and you're fighting for a bye in playoffs, or you're looking at your roster and thinking, I might have a shot at this thing, then I mean, your perspective on players like Emmanuel Sanders and I mean, Julio is just, he's just a stud. So I don't know that he necessarily applies to this conversation, but a guy like like Larry Fitzgerald, you know, in a normal year. I don't know about this year, but although we've been saying that for like the last 8 years. So
at least,
yeah. But a guy like Alshon Jeffrey, right? Deshaun Jackson in that same offense. Mm-hmm. Now that Rager's hurt a little bit, you know, I mean, guys like that, you know, they're gonna have more value in season than AJ Green. John, that's a great one. Yep, that's a great one. AJ Green's another one of those guys. You know, he's gonna have more value during the season than he is in the non-point scoring season. So you're exactly right, Russ. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing that changes. It's just that the value, the perceived value in the non-point scoring season isn't as prevalent during the season, and actual production matters more.
Yes. So, dynasty value for the non-point scoring season, fantasy value for the point scoring season. And I think our next question was going to be from Rocky at Dynasty FF Addict. Heading into the point scoring season, who are some good undervalued veterans to target before people see them start scoring points again and the price possibly goes up? I think we just answered that question. All those guys. Golden Tate's another one I'd probably throw out there.
Melvin Gordon.
Yeah. Melgo Gurley, for sure. All of those running backs that might not do great, but probably will. Philip Lindsay, just to, you know, since we're naming those running backs. John McGlynn says Diggs. I so want Diggs to do well. I like him so much. I just don't see it. I don't, that the volume's going to be so low. Josh Allen is not super accurate. And we saw how Diggs feels about inaccurate quarterbacks. So, but that's really, I mean, that's sort of everyone. I don't think there's anyone that is not obvious. Let me put it that way. I don't think I'm going to drop a name and you'd be like, oh, that guy. Like, I think all of like the vets that you can't trade in, you know, in the offseason that you probably can get right now at a little bit cheaper because we're about to start scoring points, that it's all pretty obvious. I just don't think there's anyone out of the ordinary.
Yeah. Keenan Allen would be one for me because his value's taken quite a hit, I think, this non-point scoring season with the departure of Rivers. And
yeah, it's funny because I've had on our show sheet for at least 3 weeks now in a main event. I have it all capital letters with a lot of exclamation points, the untradables.
Right.
And I mean, Debo, who we did just see get traded and finally for a good value. So I don't know about that, but also Keenan is on there because, man, you're right. His value has absolutely tanked and there's zero reason for it. Oh yeah, Jarvis Landry, J Mike brings up, but that's another guy people were just always low on in the beginning. And Does his price change once he starts scoring points? Because for some reason, people need him to be a wide receiver 1, and they just aren't happy with him being a super amazingly solid wide receiver 2. And sometimes you get that wide receiver 6 season because he randomly catches like 16 touchdowns for some reason.
Yeah.
Next question. At Renshaw Fantasy. The term Renshaw round is about to be retired. Reflect back on your favorite Renshaw round trade of this offseason. Renshaw round is the Renshaw round until someone else does it, to me. I mean, J Mike is the closest I've seen otherwise. I think he has, 21 firsts in Trade Addict 6. The guy sitting on the screen in that direction has 2 of them. So J Mike, get that going. So it's the Renshaw round unless it's the J Mike round. He's calling for it, J Mike. But okay, was there anything that comes to the top of your head about any draft, not necessarily draft day trades, but trades into or out of the first round that you feel good about? Like I had very few 101s, 102s, and I wasn't able to trade back with them. Like I never got anything worthwhile that I ended up taking the picks. I mean, and it wasn't a trade, but I got Joe Burrow at 106 in one draft, and that's super thrilling to me, but I didn't have to trade for it.
Yeah, I traded actually in Trade Addict 6. I traded the 103 and the 204, I think, for the 101 to get Burrow. That was with Hogue. We did that deal, but
yeah, and I tried to get the 101 from you at one point, and you wouldn't give it to me.
Yeah. I think I didn't really make a lot of trades into the first round.
It was so hard
into the Renshaw round. I made a lot of trades into the early second. Looking at those
T. Higgins shares. Our T. Higgins shares. You have just as many as I do.
Yeah, well, and that was it. It was all those wide receivers. It was Higgins. It was Pittman. It was Mims. It was Ayuk. It was all those guys there, in the first half of the second round that I kept trying to kind of trade up into that area for, because the class was deep and it pushed some of those guys that in another year, they may have been, in the back half of the first round, talent wise. I mean, Henry Ruggs was going, I saw him go in the early second, a couple
204s. Yeah, he was making it around those wide receivers he was getting drafted around. Yeah.
Right. So, those were players that I think in a different year would have potentially been, back end first round talents that, I was trying to trade up into the second to get them. Yeah. But I can't think of like a particular trade.
Yeah, like I don't think I made any real trades with picks once they had actual numbers put to them. Like once MFL rolled over and you saw the 10 whatever, like I don't think I actually even had the ability to make any, just because they were just, the value of them was just so weird that I wasn't willing to pay what it took to get into buy all the J.K. Dobbins I wish I had and all of that stuff. So the one trade I do remember making, again, it was before picks had real numbers to them, but I traded, I think, what was it, the 110 and 204 to get DJ Moore. So I'm still super thrilled about that. So while that's not even me trading into, it's trading out of the first round, I still think I think it turns into like Rager and Ruggs or something like, or Rager and Keyshawn Vaughn, and I'm still thrilled with getting DJ Moore for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so our last question, Chris B. Critter at CG Beck 5. I have to trim down my dynasty roster, and I'm torn between Justin Jackson and Gerald Everett. I have Josh Kelly, Kenyon Drake, CMC, and James Conner. Wow, you have a good running back core. So if you had to drop one between Justin Jackson and Gerald Everett, which would you drop? I wish he told us if it was tight end premium, but he did not.
Yeah, and I'd like to see the other options at tight end as well. On his roster, but for me, I think I would oh man, I would probably, he's got Kelly. So here's the thing about I would probably stick with Justin Jackson, but I can understand the other side of that too. I just think I don't. It's frustrating. That whole tight end situation in LA is frustrating. Tyler Bigbie for crying out loud. Tyler Higbee was, he was a beast. Second half of the season. An
Everett was also until he got hurt, and then Higbee had it all to himself.
He was. It's just tough. I think. I don't know. I just don't know what the hell they're going to do. I don't know how they're going to use those guys. Is it going to be Higbee? Is it going to be Everett? Is it going to be both? And if it's both, can it be both? It really can't be in that offense because of the other weapons. It's going to be Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods show. Van, Jefferson. So
Van the man. I think it can be both. I don't think it can be both where one of them is what they were when only one of them was going off. But I still think they could both be very usable. I got to be honest. I think I would drop. First of all, try and see if you can just get a third for one of them. Let's put that out there. Yeah. If you could get a trade where you have one person that has an open spot, just go for it. It's better than dropping them. But I don't like owning backfields. I never really have. So I'm fine. Take your stand. Who do you want? Do you want Kelly or do you want Justin Jackson? Pick one. Drop the other. That's really, and honestly, the news out of camp, which I will trust at this point, I would drop Justin Jackson because word on Kelly is pretty strong.
I don't have anything else to say about that one. It's just like that drops at the end of the roster are so tough anyways. Because you're always afraid that the guy that you cut is going to end up being the guy that, Yeah,
neither of these guys are going to blow up to the point where you feel that bad about it.
I don't believe. I agree. I don't believe either one of them will be. So,
all right. Well, that is the end of our show sheet. Unless you want to talk about some untradables.
Yeah. Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and do that. It's been on there for too long. We need to get it off.
This is really just like me griping real hard with people that I've impossible tries to trade. Man, maybe words. This will definitely be the last thing we talk about. All right. So, like I said, all capital letters, lots of exclamation points, the untradables. Let me just read down this list. Jarvis Landry, Deebo Samuel, DeAndre Hopkins, Keenan Allen, Devin Singletary, Mike Evans. And this Singletary was even before the, if he keeps fumbling, then Zach Moss is going to be the running back one. So, whatever, man. These people, I don't understand, why it's so hard. Why the hate is so strong on all of these players that you can't get even close to what their real value should be. And again, this comes off of us reading off a trade for Deebo, which does seem like good value. But man, I find it almost impossible. I tried to trade him to Kevin Cotillo in Pigs 1, I think it was. And he's like, I'm just not in on Deebo. And he has Garoppolo as one of his quarterbacks. I thought that stack would feel nice. And he's just like, no, not looking for Deebo. I'm like, oh, all right. Okay, never mind. But it seems so tough to get full value on these guys. And when has Landry let you down? Never. When has Hopkins let you down? Literally never. When has Keenan let you down? When his spleen exploded. Devin Singletary, he didn't have the workload to himself last year, and we liked him then. He put up points then. He doesn't have it to himself this year. Why is that a big deal now? It wasn't last year. Why is it a big deal now? It shouldn't be. And Mike Evans, that dude never gets the respect he deserves. Are we really that worried that Tom Brady's throwing him the ball? Yes, volume will be down, and that kind of sucks. But there'll be actually good passes coming his way when they do.
Yeah. I agree. I think to me, and I hate saying this because you've been trying to trade him to me in one of our trade addicts leagues. I think it was 3. Mike Evans is the one on this list that to me really stands out. What does Mike Evans have to do to be looked at as an elite asset? Because he absolutely is. He's just ultra consistent. He's Jordan McNamara, we've had him on the show a couple of times with the analytics of Dynasty, and he loves Mike Evans because he's like, look, is he going to have the weeks where he's, 3 catches for 18 yards. Yeah, he is. But he's also going to have a lot more of the weeks where he's 8 catches for 150 and 2 touchdowns. Like he wins. Evans will win you weeks by himself. Not by himself, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, he is a player that will win you a number of weeks during a fantasy season. So, you know, I are people scared off by Chris Godwin being on the other side? I mean, I get it. I get it because he's a stud, but this situation is AB and Juju, not anything other than that. I mean, that's what it is. It's AB Juju. So they're both going to have, you know, a lot of space to operate. They're both good at running routes. They're both good at contested catches. They're both fast. And they have the greatest quarterback that's ever played the game, the most accurate quarterback that's ever played the game, throwing them the football now. Can he chuck it 75? No. Does he have to? No. If he puts it on the money at 35 on the hash, they're gone. You know what I mean? Like it's just I'm not concerned with Tom Brady at all, to answer that. And Mike Evans he's just a stud. He's just a stud, and he should not be a player that is untradeable. The one common thing about all these guys is they're moving into their upper 20s, and we've talked about this before. Where
Evans is like 26,
in Dynasty, yeah, but 27's only a year from 28, and at 28 they start. Listen, you know me. I mean, I love all of these guys. I love guys like Julio, who's already 30. That like. I just can't. It pisses me off so bad that people give up on these guys when they hit the age of 28. They think they have to walk around with a walker. It's the most ridiculous thing ever. I mean, if you'd have done that with, and I've said these two names before, but if you would have quit Marvin Harrison at 30, I mean, you'd have been a sad soul. Same with Andre Johnson
at 30.
Jerry
lost
Rice,
10 years.
Andre Johnson. And look, I mean, these are some of the best players, the best wide receivers that we've seen. But still, I mean, the guys that we're talking about have all produced at an elite level in the National Football League for multiple seasons. So, you know, with the exception of maybe a guy like, Debo hasn't yet because he's young. And Landry hasn't necessarily produced at an elite level, but he's been
in the league for the amount of years he's been in it.
He's been a consistently high performer. Let's say that.
All right, I'll accept that. I
mean, it's like J Mike put in the chat. He's top 18 all the time, and it's true. He is. He might not be wide receiver 5 or 6 more than once in his career, but he's probably going to be in the 10 to 18 range almost every year. So.
I don't know how I missed Jerry O'Shea putting Jerick McKinnon in our chat when we were talking about vets to buy on the cheap. Go get those jet shares, baby. Go get those jet shares, baby. This is the year it's going to happen. Let's do it. Jerick McKinnon, baby.
Amir Abdullah too, right?
Fear Amir, baby. I mean, the other way around. But yeah, those my love will never die for those two. I don't care what league they play in. But now that is officially the end of our show sheet. So this is going to be the end of our show. Thank you, everyone who listened or watched live with us. And thank you to everyone who's going to listen to this in podcast form. Hopefully you do. Who cares? I like hanging out with Brian. He's okay.
Samesies.
So let's do our thing. If you were live and you enjoyed it, or if you're like, hey, they were talking about people's questions. That's awesome. They can answer questions live while they're doing it. Hey, patreon.com/tradeaddictspod. You can be in this chat every single week while we record, watching this live stream. And when I actually don't forget to edit out Brian's curses, you get to hear him curse. I absolutely forgot to edit it out of the last show. And I even yelled at you for making me edit. And I posted it and I'm just like, oh crap. And I almost messaged you, but then I just, absolutely forgot to take out your F-bomb. Oh, well. But patreon.com/tradeaddictspod. It's awesome. It's fun. Oh, yeah. And don't forget the group me chat of the Cool Kids Club, which is also a rockin' good time. We brought it up before, and you forgot this entire time to look at the actual name of the charity. So that's what you're doing right now. Ffpodshirts.storenvy.com. You can get awesome merch from Trade Addicts Pod, from Dynasty Junkies, Fantasy Timeline, Dynasty Diagnostic, Dynasty Game Night, the Dab Network. There's a shirt for Casey Kasem. There's a sticker for Top Shelf DFF and Coast to Coast Scouting. And oh yeah, I put up a sticker just for Mandrew himself. It's just like his hair and his beard. I have to buy that. It's hilarious. And all proceeds from all of Superflex Super Show. Didn't want to forget them. All proceeds from all purchases of that store go to charity. And Brian, what charity will they be going to for the next 2 months?
They will be going to Operation Underground Railroad. And it's an organization that assists governments around the world in rescue of human trafficking and sex trafficking victims, with a special focus on children.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to write down that name so I can talk about it later. But yes, also for stuff you can buy that will be donated to this charity. Say it again.
I'm sorry. Repeat.
What's the name of the charity again?
The charity is Operation Underground Railroad.
Okay. So if you want to purchase our awesome wristbands, the neon green and navy blue Trade Addicts Pod wristbands, $5 a wristband, $2 of every wristband will go to. Man, I already dropped it.
Operation Underground Railroad.
Operation Underground Railroad. So hit up Brian in the DMs because I'm still too lazy to go to a post office to send them out. And is that it? Yeah. Good night, Brian.
Night out, House.
Thanks for hitting us up with the live views, everyone, if you did. And good night to all you listening. Bye.
Peace.